All right. And welcome back to another episode of Season 5, Rough Sketch the Final Draft. I am your host, Coach Adam. And we are on a journey in Season 5 of covering a lot of bases. And we have a return guest, an amazing return guest, Mrs. Coach Dea, who is a relationship therapist. She is a relationship counselor. She is expert in many, many different fields. She is a public speaker. She has had a award-winning podcast in her career as well, and she is gracing us with her presence once more to have a deep dive conversation today about many, many, many different topics, but definitely about where pain comes from and stopping pain and seeing if we can actually root out where causing pain starts and how to stop it in the process. So, without further ado, allow me to pass off the introduction to Mrs. Coach Dea herself so she can warmly welcome us. Welcome, Dea.
My goodness, what a great intro. And thank you so much for this honor of being on your podcast. Once again, your amazing podcast. As you know, I am a fan of how you host, your grace, your availability, and how you support your guests. It's really amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, as part of being in Season 5, being that you are now returning twice now, and this will be the third time on our fantastic podcast, I wanted to dive deeper. And we've talked about this a little bit in other episodes before, though the topic of pain is something that is coming up in the world. A lot of us are feeling it. A lot of us are going through it. And I want to kind of bring the audience in and allow us to start kind of talking about it from a foundational level. And if we dig down deeper, perfect. If we go up higher, let's see where we go. But I want to ask, where do you think that the relationship of pain kind of stems from as it shows up in relationships? Being someone who does marriage counseling, where do you see that the relationship of internal pain really does start to show up? And maybe we'll just start there, and I'll pass off the expertise to you.
So I'd like to start with this definition of we're obviously not speaking about physical pain. We're talking about emotional pain. And
Yes.
so in that regard, I want to just kind of go over the dictionary definition of what it is: an unpleasant feeling of distress, anguish, or suffering that arises from a non-physical source. And it can be a deeply felt ache from the heart and mind, as well as very distinct from physical pain. Emotional pain can stem from various experiences like loss, trauma, or feelings of inadequacy. So having defined that, right, when we look at emotional pain and how it relates to relationships, be a relationship with a partner, a family member, co-workers, just life in general, even people in leadership, right? Because leadership is about relationship with people. I feel that pain is something that, that is a byproduct of a life event. And for some people, like it mentions here, is loss, is trauma, grief, or any other thing, and betrayal, right? It could be any of those things, but it is what we call a heart wound. And a heart wound is something that is not visible to the eye. And I think this is why it's so difficult to relate to people, because as we are interacting in the realm of relationships, we're not in the presence of what caused us the pain. We're only in the presence of how it makes us feel and relate to the present. And so what we normally would do is, this happened to me 10 years ago, but it makes me feel like that's what that is, even though it has nothing to do with what's going on right now. And you want to, you know, express it the way you express it, the way it made you feel. This is why, as a relationship coach, I became so passionate about becoming a certified trauma healing facilitator, because I was curious to see how trauma impacted the way that we not only chose our partners, but the way we engaged in relationship, and most importantly, how it impacted the way we engaged in the conflict resolution. And so I would say that it's a very powerful thing. Pain is a weapon of sorts, right? Because, when we pass on the pain is because we are in pain. That's the funny thing. Passing the pain is the byproduct of being in pain, right? So it's interesting there. So that's what I wanted to start with.
Well, that's one heck of a starter. There we are. We've got the appetizer and part of the main course. I'm going to circle back to a beautiful portion that you just said. That is such a great expose to get us all started on. And we're going to spend the next 45 minutes trying to unpack that, fan. So I think the process that you were talking about that stood out to me was the fact that there is a process how pain shows up in who we choose in our relationships. Permission to unpack that beautiful nugget right there, Dea. How does pain show up in a way that helps drive the modus operandi of what we're looking for when we're actually out there searching for our potential partners? How does that pain affect that? That's beautiful.
So, let me talk about something physical just to illustrate some of the way that I think it shows up. Now, this is going to be a very simplistic way of looking at this type of familial pain that we carry. And reason being that when we are familiar with pain, we're going to opt to be in pain no matter what, because we know that. Even if being happy is better, we're going to go with what's familiar, right? So here's the reason. Think about it in a physical way, very simplistic way. This actually happened to me. I broke my toe. I stubbed my toe, last year, and my toe turned black, and it was all this swelling that comes with it. Pain comes with a bunch of little things, little side things that are going to be pulling at your heartstrings. But we're looking at the physical now, and I was so shocked how every time I took a step or forgot that the pain was there, even though it was there, I ended up hurting my toe over and over and over. And if we translate that into brain, into neuroscience, you're going to see what you think of, what you are in the presence of, attracts more of the same, right? So being in pain creates pain. If you don't go and take care of that wound, to try to heal, to try to deal with it, not change it, but to nurture yourself throughout, right? So let's say I have a broken toe. I need to put ice. I need to keep it clean. I need to make sure I don't stub it again, maybe wearing the proper shoes, right? We need to dress it, protect it. And I think people don't do that. They don't protect it. They feel exposed. And so with that, it's almost like you keep going at it, you keep hurting it and injuring it further. The less you pay attention to it, the more it's going to attract more of what it is. So, because sometimes with pain, let's say something in childhood, right, that you could carry very deeply and never really even think about it, but then you become something out of that experience. And so now with that pain comes a vow. That vow is, I will never, ever let anyone treat me this way. You put up walls. Those walls are now preventing you from experiencing life from the way life is meant to be. It's going to be related to that pain. So think about it. The brain is so powerful that the minute it says, I am injured or I am hurt, I'm traumatized, and you don't work on that to heal, the brain will look for things to match that. It'll match the trauma, it'll match the fear, it'll match the disappointment. And then you hear people say, it keeps happening again. This is the story of my life. It's how it is. It's just how it is. No, it's how you creating it. You're creating a reality based on something that's so deeply internalized that it becomes you. And until you go back and heal that, you will be that pain. But we know for a fact, you and I as coaches know this, we are not what happened to us. And partially, the beauty of the work of healing is that we get to that point where we stop saying, that happened to me. He did. She did that to me. And we say, no matter what happened, the healing is my responsibility. No matter what happened, what's happening in me, right? Because that's so much more important. What's happening in us at the mercy of an offense, a life event, abuse, all of those things are horrific. Yes, but we still have the responsibility to walk a different walk even with the pain. The trauma we can't erase, right? We can't change what happened, but we can look at it with a different set of eyes. And with that, create a new narrative. The power of a new narrative plays such an important role, seeing it with different set of eyes, or maybe seeing what happened and say, okay, what can I do with this? How is this disappointment, trauma, life event, whatever it may be, grief, can be a revelation, because it will expose us, right? It's a mirror for us to look into and say, how do I move from here? Who do I become? Who am I? Where's my identity? And making that choice consciously, but without the healing work, it's not possible.
Amen to that. Yeah, we have to really do the washing machine before. Otherwise, you're literally setting it up perfectly for the whole entire premise of this episode, of the fact of how do we stop that pain? Because if part of the process of what we're actually seeking out, we have this radar kind of set. If I can kind of summarize it as a visual abstract in that regard. We have a radio inside of our hearts, and you dial it into, I don't know, classical music, but that classical music actually still is radiating with that pain frequency in that regard. Well, you're going to attract and be on that frequency of the pain that you're sending out there. And it's not even something that we're doing intentional. So anyone who's listening to this, and bless all your beautiful hearts in that regard, the truth of it is that it really is just something that is happening. If you are genuinely in that modality in your mind, it's not that you're trying to do it on purpose. But the point of what even Dea is saying is that you must make what is unconscious conscious to be able to even start dealing with the actual concerns that might have been holding us back and hiding from us since our childhood, like she had mentioned beautifully, so that we actually really can bring it to the surface, unpack it, throw out the socks that we don't need, right? We're going on a short trip, so we don't need that many shirts, and we can just focus on what we're going to do for our trip to the Bahamas and just change our whole entire direction. If we can do that, then we can start analyzing what might be a better fit for us as we move forward. And I think the idea is certainly, how do you heal that pain so that you don't pass it on, but then you don't push it forward onto the next person either. Because I think for the most part, kind of what we're also saying, I'll say the quiet part out loud for us, is that hurt people are also attracted to hurt people sometimes in that truest way. And I think that's something that we don't necessarily say enough, but people who are hurt are attracted to people who are hurt because that's their comfort zones. So I'm sure that that's got a lot of, I see the wheels turning on you, jump on in. What do you got there? What do you got there, Dea?
Well, one of the notes that I took when I was reflecting about this was, I said, the danger lies in how accustomed we can become with being in pain in such way that we can't process happiness, right? And therefore we bypass it, right? So familiar with pain is painful, but it's familiar. You see, we pick familiar over change. We pick familiar over happiness, because we know it. It's more comfortable. It's uncomfortable, but it's more comfortable to be uncomfortable than it is to be whole, to be new, to be in a place we've never been before. It really is. It's insane almost how people will pick the thing that hurts because that's all they know, right? And again, the brain does that. See, the brain will match the pain. The brain, thankfully, the brain also matches the desire to heal. This is why I say healing begins with desire. I've said this. I've had a million speeches about what healing actually is. And where does it begin? Because I know for myself personally, when I began my healing journey, I didn't wake up and like, yay, today I'm going to heal. It was like, I didn't even know what it meant. But I did say, I know I need a different life. I want a different life. And when I said I want a different life, then all kinds of life events, books, podcasts, people called, and I talked to some people, ran into some new people. And all of a sudden, I started attracting the path of which I needed to step onto, and coupled with the courage. Somehow I had this newfound strength. I turned to my faith again, and I said, I know God's going to show me. I may not know all the way here, but I just knew that God was going to help me. So you have to create the accessibility. That door has to open, even if it's like, I don't know how, but I want it. I want this. I want it. And when you say you want it, desire will put you in a different path. If we don't process, and if we are, oh, this is so much easier, I don't have to work, I don't have to, you see, because the fear is the person we have to become in order to fulfill the new role. It's the fear of, I have to be someone, this will require so much of me, I have to step up, right, to fulfill this place I know nothing about, and no one wants to do that. It's so much easier. No, I'm going to stay where I am. It's like, stay here in my cocoon and not, don't disturb me. It takes courage, of course.
Both are work, right? One is hard work in dealing with the stress that you're comfortable in dealing with. So it's work, but you're really familiar with this work. And then the other work is becoming something brand new, and that's new work, and that's scary work. I don't want to do that work. I like the work that I'm already complaining about. I'm comfortable with the way I complain about it. I like the way I complain about it. People give me validation for the way that I complain about it, and because I attract people that are like me in my pain, they resonate with the way that I complain about my problems. So everything works for me, but it's not working for me, but it works for me. Yeah. No, I hear you. I do. That's beautifully
Well,
put.
misery loves company, right?
Yeah.
Misery loves company. Here's why: because you see, remember, the confirmation of any kind of trauma, pain, fear, loss, grief, the confirmation, what it does is that it keeps us right. If we have no, they did that to us. They did that to me. She did that to me. He did that to me. This happened to me. It's not fair. That keeps that real alive, right? It keeps the pain alive. And that is a form of validation, which is crazy in and of itself, right? To you have the confirmation that what happened to you was real. And I always say to my clients, the one thing is when I work with trauma, I explain to people why I think they should put I tell them like this. I illustrate the pain, the grief, whatever, as it's in a backpack. And we put that backpack on. I usually have a bag with me. But let's say this is the trauma, right? So this is the trauma. The trauma's in here. And I think every morning, subconsciously, we put this on us. We walk outside, and everything we do, the same way we talk to people. Usually I say the backpack, but I don't have a backpack right now. So people put this on, and I say, hey, when you put this on and you decide to put it down, we're not saying the trauma didn't exist. You think the trauma goes away, it doesn't. And people feel invalidated. Well, if I put it down, then I'm going to say what happened is okay. No, we're going to put it down, not because it didn't, but because it did. Because that becomes a weight that you're going to operate from. That the trauma now becomes you. Your identity is in this trauma. And we need to separate the two. Something happened to you. Yes, something hurt you, something traumatized you, but you're not what happened to you. You have things that you can work on. And remember one of the podcasts, I said your stops are your steps. Remember? That's
Yes,
what I'm talking about.
I'm going to
Your
pin that one
stops
right
are
here.
your steps.
Yes,
Yeah, your stops are your steps. And it's one of those things where, we need to look at the disappointments, the pain, the life event they revealed. They hurt, but they also revealed. And the focus is to change the narrative, but you can create a new narrative and tell a new story and look at what it is that's being shown to you. Because I can tell you, in all my life of storms and most self inflicted, I can look back and see what I thought was a disappointment was a revelation. It pointed me in a different direction. It pointed me to do something different. And when I look back, it's funny. I'm not in the presence of the pain when I look back because something came out of it. So you start looking at it's not the story of the triumph or the story of the pain, it's the story of the journey, the steps, the way that you had to conduct yourself from that point on in order to thrive and overcome it. And with time, all is healed in a sense, right? But we still need to go back and work deeper, do the deep inner work. That's vital. That is important.
Amen to that. I think you nailed it. You succinctly summarized the entirety of it. And there was also an episode with the pain to purpose. Pin that one right here, where the amazing Coach Dea talked about a number of really, really beautiful moments, fam, that really unlock where we can go in turning the pain that we are experiencing and not just putting it down, but really understanding that that is what's inside that backpack is part of your purpose. Because your life is not supposed to be just accumulating pains. It's not supposed to be like when we hold that little flower when we're kids, he loves me not, she loves me not. And you're just thinking about one pain and the next pain and the next pain. It's not just collecting pain. It's about the idea that these moments in our lives shape our realities of who we are. And I think with what you were saying before, with the fact that it's part of what our reality is. And if we somehow let that go, that's part of who we are as an identity. And I almost want to kind of unpackage that word real and what's reality in our identity. And I would say that because the audience nowadays is more prepared for this, but if you respell the word real, which is REAL, and you say REEL, like we do with our clips that we make, a reel, it's just a clip. It's not reality. It's just a moment. It's just a 30-second reel that is real. But if you think about the memory in your past, which was 30 years ago on a Friday, you only really remember about a minute and 20 seconds of that day. And that really was real. It was, but it's a REEL that you keep playing inside your mind and your eyes are watching it all the time. Stop playing the reel is what Dea is suggesting. Let it go. Turn it off. Delete that from your Instagram feed so that no one else can see it. It's true, but put it down. You don't need it anymore. And what are some of the ways in which you would suggest to be able to let people put it down? I know you've got tons of good advice.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, first, I love what you're saying because you're right. It's the glimpse of, right? A glimpse of a time or a glimpse of a life event. And, what happens too is that here's how we actually experience this that we're talking about, right? So it becomes through projections and insecurities. We get to express ourselves that way when we're carrying that backpack. That's one of them. The other one is we can model after unhealthy behavior. So if something happens in childhood and it's not dealt with, right? So let's take parentification for instance, right? In parentification, let's say a child is given all these responsibilities and become the adult very early on with a number of responsibilities where the parents are relying on the child to be the sounding board of the family, etc. That child may carry that to the next events of their lives as adults as never being able to be there for themselves, always worrying about other people, and eventually becoming oversaturated with a lack of sense of self because they're constantly immersed in everybody else's lives. So, this is one way that pain can carry to the next level, the next journey, the next season of a person's life. Communication breakdown is one of them, right? So, people kind of cannot communicate appropriately because it's always relating to the real that they're playing. It becomes that you start to talk to someone or start a relationship and you're going to remember something that happened in another relationship before. And because you didn't work on that, you didn't unpack that, now it's going to be playing a part in your current relationship that has nothing to do with the person that you're dealing with. Um, become You may have trust issues and you become distant and dissonant from reality, from things, that causes so many things that carrying the pain, unresolved pain, will bleed. What did I hear them say this? You can bleed on people who didn't even cut you. It's not my
That's right.
phrase, but that's what people say. You start bleeding your pain on everything. It starts to taint with everything that you do, everything that you say, the way you communicate. Certainly in the conflict resolution department, that's a big one. Trauma of any kind, be grief, loss, betrayal, it will overtake the way you communicate in a time that instead of pursuing the truth, you should be pursuing the heart of your partner. And this stops many people. That's why people break up because they become, well, I got to be right. I know that I'm right. And you lose that. You lose the emotional availability, the emotional humility, which lead to a language that needs to be implemented. And that is that, the narrative shouldn't be all mistakes or regrets. It should be, are these lessons? So I always say, I know it hurt. I know it was terrible. I know it felt unfair, but is this a lesson? What am I supposed to see here? Not why does this happen to me? Why does this always happen to me? No. What is this showing me? That's the narrative. The power of a narrative, the power of the narrative lies in your availability, emotional availability, your openness to see what's being presented beyond the pain, beyond the hurt, beyond the offense. What am I learning? What is this for? Right? There's no pain without purpose. That's the narrative. There's no pain without purpose. Pain leads to purpose, power, and eventually peace.
Go watch the other episode, fam. From Pain to Purpose. Dea crushed it on that one as well. Such a joy getting a chance to hear you talk about this topic. I love it. And it's just the fact that obviously the next crucial portion is just enough to pass it on. And obviously we're unpackaging it so that there's so many component pieces that are crucial in relationship building. The next one I think that's obviously, and this is kind of a softball, but at the same time, it's a great one because it's on people's minds. Why do people hide their pain? Right? Why do they? It's a super simple question. And on the surface level, it's like, well, of course, I've got that answer. But wait, there's always more. So let's unpack that. I'm going to pass it off to you. Why do people hide their pain? Why do people do that?
Fear of judgment, fear of judgment. It's funny how unfortunately, what ends up happening is, we end up, a lot of people, and me, myself included, at a time of my life, I don't do that anymore, but most of us have done this at a certain point. We fall into this category of comparison. And it is how, when you measure your worth by people's appearance, when you're dealing with your own reality, and I think this is a veil, right? The veil of, I don't measure up, because you're trying to put yourself in a box, but not looking at yourself as a whole. And why do people hide? Is because they're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of not being good enough. Again, it's that fear of, it's so funny. Fear of the pain is actually a byproduct of the pain itself. It's all in there. It's like we're afraid of showing the pain because we're in pain. That's what I said. Like passing the pain on is a byproduct of being in pain. One doesn't exist without the other, you know? And I think that's why we hide the pain, because we are in pain. It's fear of judgment, fear of not measuring up, fear of not being worthy, or fear of not being enough. Fears, feelings of inadequacy. Inadequacy is a big one. You know, I always say that inadequacy is that feeling that has no face. That's why it's easy to hide, right? If you're angry, people can see it. If you're happy, people can see it. If you're mad, people can see it. If you're disappointed, people can see it. There's a face for that, but there is no face for inadequacy. And it usually comes with silence. You hide. You don't talk about it. You hold it in. You shove it all the way down. Nobody knows that you're feeling inadequate. You could look perfectly perfect, and, you know, sitting there and feel inadequate, and no one will know because inadequacy has no face. There's no
True.
expression when someone feels inadequate.
Yeah.
You can feel
Oof.
awkward. You know the face for awkward. You know the face for uncomfortable. Not inadequate. There was no face for that feeling. I've researched. There's no face.
Yeah.
Easy to hide, right? We hide because we're in pain.
I love that. And then, and can I add that there's an ironic twist to this, and this is going to keep on keeping this conversation going. I just want to add, isn't it painful to hide? Isn't that the ironic part about this also? Is that it's painful to hide your partner sitting right across from you, someone that you love, like a friend, like you. If we were sitting down together and I was going through the world, I had a bad day, maybe something happened at work, something happened on my flight as I was coming out to New York to come visit you or whatever. I'm sitting there just wearing it inside my soul, and you are sitting right across from me at coffee, and I'm just in it, but I won't let myself show you. I just won't. That's hurtful. That's painful to not want to be able to be vulnerable with your partner, and you're silently, quietly dying inside. Like Henry Thoreau said that men live quiet lives of desperation. He was right. And it's so weird and ironic that we hide because of our pain, and then it's also painful to hide. So
Painful.
take it away. Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
because it's familiar. You see, at the end of the day, the funny thing about the pain that it's eventually it's not even about the pain. We're in pain. This is why we pass on the pain. And it's painful to be in pain, but it's not about the pain. It's about familiar. We want to, we are either creatures of habit or, you know, we need to know. It's more, it's just, it's that type of uncomfortable is more comfortable than being in the unknown, right? It's what we know, feeling that we have a grip on what's going on. We're in pain. We know the reason. It's so much easier to remain there, right? It is not easy to be happy. I said that in Fingerprints of Faith when we talked about it. I said, you know, the pursuit of peace is not peaceful. Remember that? The pursuit of peace is not peaceful. And this is why it's so much easier to sit in pain. Because for you to get to the place where you're going to have peace, right? Remember, pain leads to purpose, that leads to power, that leads to peace. That is
Right.
a journey in and
Yeah.
of itself, right? It's a walk, it's a change of lifestyle. It's a, you know, so, you know, for us to go from pain to peace, you're going to have to navigate, you know, a journey. You're going to have to be in a different type of journey, taking new steps. It's a 180-degree, it's a lifestyle change. It's a, you know, deeper understanding of self. You know, like when you, if you ever done, when I know when I did therapy in the early years of my adult life, it was horrible. Like you, it's like peeling an ugly onion. You know, you just peel all the layers and the truth, and you got to face all these things about yourself. It's not for the weak. You know, the reason why pain weakens us, right? Like when you, like, let's illustrate physically. If you have a pain in your stomach and you say, oh my God, my knees got weak, right? You lose your, like women when they're in labor, they can't stand up, their legs, they give out. Why? Because pain makes you weak. And you know, there's so much strength required just to be courageous, just to decide to heal and find a way out. It takes strength, you know, it takes resilience. This is why pain is easier. It's easier to stay in pain, you know, it's easier to just stay there
Stay there.
because peace is not peaceful. The pursuit of it is not peaceful. It takes work, and people don't want to work. I
No.
think people just want to be comfortable, familiar, painful, but familiar.
clear. I love it. And it's funny because I want to add some humor to this because obviously it's a more oof topic to us all. And again, I think it's always beautiful whenever we have these conversations. So parlay that for a second. That we're talking and unpacking some simple topics for the most part, right? I mean, let's be honest. Let's kind of peel our own layers back and be like, this seems on surface level normal coffee talk. But then just in an instant, we realize it's really not. So I think for the benefit of anyone who ever listens to any of these moments, I'm so grateful to all of you that have. Thank you for your 10,000 followership. Go support Dea as well. The links will be down below. Is the fact that there really is a cornucopia and just a Rubik's Cube of complexity to all of these things that we think that are so normal and just surface level. You know, people nowadays, as a visual example, people, you know, whenever you go for a personal training type of an assessment, you'll ask, do you have any ailments or anything else like that? And you actually have to now specify, do you have heartburn? Do you have asthma? Do you have any type of dietary issues? Because for the most part, people just think this is normal commonplace that everyone has heartburn, that everyone has asthma. And it's like, no, this is not normal. You need to get these things checked. It's okay. So when we're talking about things like pain and how you deal with it, how you avoid it, how it shows up in your relationships, how it shows up in your personal life, how it shows up in your interpersonal journey as working with an amazing coach like Dea, it isn't just normal to think I've got problems. No, yes, we all have them, but don't just like put them on the shelf like now that I've got them, I can fit in with the rest of the world. Realize that you need to at least go through spring cleaning every now and again and pick one or two of those and start unpackaging them. But it's an interesting journey. And to add to the funny, to obviously, like I said before, is that when people deny their pain, there's a famous video that trends online on YouTube. I think it's got like 12 million views or something else like that within the past month and a half. There's an image of a gentleman who is in custody and he's in the drunk tank. And he's throwing a fit. He's making a mess, the whole entire thing. It's only a 30-second clip. I can tag it in this if we want to afterwards. But then the next day is the interview with the police officers, and he's watching the video of himself. And he's in complete denial. That was not me. No, it's not. You know, he's got the same sweatshirt on, same haircut. It's got his name on the sweatshirt because it was a work related one. And it's just like that. We deny that that was us. We deny that that was our pain. We don't want anything to do with it, but we have to take ownership and really actually wear that sweatshirt and say, yep, it is. And then recognize that we can take that sweatshirt off when we're ready to put that layer of pain down, like you were saying, peeling off these layers and deal with whatever's underneath that's making us feel uncomfortable and not our true selves, removing these masks as some of the content that we've been talking about lately. So there's much to say. Jump in. I can see those wheels turning again. I can see it in your eyes. Jump in.
No, I love it. I think that, yeah, no, it's true. And I wanted to point out that, it goes without saying that, we are surface level brushing upon these subjects for people to understand that pain is complex. Trauma is complex. That's why there are many layers to unveiling pain, right? So, it's not like, a physical wound you can see, you can touch, you can clean it, you can nurture back to health. But the heart wound is invisible, and the heart wound leaves a scar so deep, and it's really hard to unpack. It's not what we're not saying is, oh, just let it go. We're not saying that. We're saying, like you said, everyone is different and everyone will process grief, loss, trauma, betrayal differently. But you need to find what it is for you, what works for you, in a sense that you can grow from it. Understanding the complexity of trauma, I always recommend we're not going to go back and change what happened. What we're doing is, of what happened, what parts of it can we move away from or create something new, because pain always leads to purpose in some way. Now, there are people who've been traumatized in childhood and then became their mission to help children who experience the same kind of trauma and be a beacon of light for others. There are
Yeah.
people who can't do that, but there are people who can. What is it that in your pain that you find that can lead you to become your step, right? Where your stop becomes your step. That's only for a person to personally answer. There are some things, though, in general, that you can do to stop the process of passing your pain. And when I say passing your pain, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're purposely saying, I'm going to go punch that guy in the face because I have trauma here. We do it subconsciously. It's not something that we are, most people are not aware that they're doing that. Okay. It's the heart wound that's there. Think of a scar that's there that can't be, that doesn't fade. It's just there, right? So there's some things that you can do, and it begins with self-awareness and self-acceptance, right? It's one of them, meaning have to become aware of how does it manifest in your body. Do you have anxiety? Do you start sweating? Recognizing even at a physical level how your pain manifests itself, how the trauma of the pain or being in pain manifests itself, so that you can, one, seek professional help, two, you can practice some type of mindfulness, whether it be meditating or exercising or swimming or singing or humming. There's so many different ways to, decompress, de-stress. In the moment that you realize that you can identify what your triggers are, you can manage it, right? It may never fix or go away, but managing is powerful. Managing, I always say, a friend of mine who's a spiritual coach used to say to me, honor your feelings. Honoring your feelings doesn't mean that you change the feelings. It just means that you manage it, you sit with it, and you have to recognize what works for you. Everybody does that differently. I can't say manage your feelings by, look, if you're stressed, make some popcorn, go watch TV. That may work for some, not work for others. What is it that, through self-awareness, through the understanding of what happened, through taking inventory of how you process your pain, you can decide what works for you, what makes you feel better. Some people still carry their blankets from when they're babies, holding something soft, or drinking warm tea. Everybody's different. Obviously, that goes without saying that when you do go into mindful practices, that you learn how to nurture yourself and how to find supportive relationships. To creating a support system is good. The other thing is, to improve communication, as I mentioned before, yeah, you will need a new language, right? So it's curbing the way you talk about yourself. What you say to yourself about yourself is going to matter, because remember, the brain will still try to match what you're saying. The brain doesn't know your feelings, but it hears your voice and recognizes your thoughts, right? Neuroscience, thoughts, behaviors, and habits. So the brain will recognize, oh, I'm not good enough. Well, that's fine. In the world, what is going to be pointing and remind you that you're not good enough, right? So you're going to be finding yourself in situations that will confirm what you believe. We create our reality in so many ways. And we've talked about brain mind power for years. And I think we still don't use not even a fraction of what the power that we hold. And can you imagine that we're still creating our reality, and how crazy that is, right? And also seeking professional help. Why is that important, right? I think the emphasis here is, whether it's a coach, a life coach, a relationship coach, or a therapist or a psychiatrist, whatever your need may be, a person who's equipped. Why is that important? It's important because sometimes the support system of friends and family, even though it's wonderful to feel loved, and I think there's a place for it, right? We can have that, but we need to find someone who is equipped, that can help you identify and strategize. Not enough to just clinically put labels on things, right? We can't just sit there and just put labels on it and just verbal vomit. Just talk, 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 talk. Okay, you said this. Let's look at that. Okay, this is what you can do. Today, do this, 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 this. For the next 30 days, small things, tiny little assignments, things that don't overwhelm a person. It's so doable. It's taking the little steps one day at a time. It's like if you go to the gym, right? You are, uh, fitness person. You know that you don't go to the gym and work for 85 hours on the first day. You can go today and do work your quads, and the next day you could go work your biceps, or you could do a combination of things in increments of, relax your legs today, do your upper body. We have to do things in increments, small segments of things, as well as increments of time, right? So 10 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow. Next week you could do a half an hour. You know what I mean? Walk 15 minutes today, walk 1/4 of a mile. Next month, you may be walking 10 miles, but you will build up to it. Build up to it so that you are getting used to it. It's going to create a process of discipline and consistency that requires you to take the steps consistently. If you go to the gym and work out for 2 hours on the first day, tomorrow you're not going to be able to walk. And then you can continue with the consistency, right? Small things, small habits, little by little, a day at a time. So it's really, truly important. And the other thing that I like to say is, when we rely on people that, even though they love us, and there's nothing wrong with receiving the love, but when we rely solely on those who love us, two things are going to happen. One, they're going to judge us or tell us what to do and who we are and what we need to do from their fear, from their lack. Not uncommon. I, as a mom of five, can tell you sometimes I'm like, no, don't do it. And then I'm scared that my kids are going to get hurt. So I'll give like the wrong advice because I'm like, let them, give them the freedom to experience, you know. And as a parent, that's hard. But it's very common. Parents are like so fearful their kids are going to, you know, that we start to interfere on their decisions. You got to let them go through it to learn the experience fully. That's number one. Number two is when we start telling the story to people we love, they will listen. You know, they will listen 100 times, and 100 times we're going to be repeating the same story, toxic venting, ruminating, repeating. And it's okay to vent, but then it becomes a thing. You know, we're just toxic venting. Nothing changes, you know. So I think a combination of two, a little bit of love, a little bit of obviously it's nice to pick up your phone and talk to a dear friend or talk to your parents or your sister, your brother, anyone, but then get someone that actually can help, that can understand, help you unpack, take inventory of what the journey will be. We all need support, right? So these are some of the things people can do to start to begin in the journey of self-discovery. I think the interesting thing about pain, and this is just a positive perspective for those of you who may be listening feeling discouraged, is that pain leads to peace. It'll hurt and hurt and hurt until it doesn't hurt anymore. If we wait long enough, you'll see it won't hurt anymore, you know, but you have to put in the work. Put in the work. Let just just flow with it. Surrender to it. Surrender to yourself and feel deserving, you know, because all of us, the thing about healing that's crazy is, you know, if we are looking at pain and from the perspective of not being good enough and not being worthy, we're not going to feel deserving of the peace. We're not going to feel deserving of the process of healing. You know, it takes that acceptance. We mentally have to say, I want it. I may not know how to get it, but I deserve it. And say it even if you don't believe it, because I'm telling you, the brain does not hear this. The brain never hears your feelings. The brain hears your words, and the brain recognizes your thoughts. And if they're bad thoughts, the brain will absolutely 100% match that bad thought. And you're going to have the same thing going on over and over and over. One day, I just got up and said, I don't want this anymore. I want a new life. I don't know how, but I want a new life. And when I did 30 days of reading a list of things that I deserved that I didn't even write, my coach wrote it for me. This is years ago. What do you think you deserve? I don't know. You know, if things change and things were wonderful, who would you be? I don't know. And that shocked me. I wouldn't even know how good it would be if things were better. And I needed better so badly. But then he asked me the question that changed my world. And if things don't change, do you know who you will become? Oh, yeah, I'll be cynical. I will be destructive. I
Yeah.
will be unhappy. I will
Yeah.
be, no, I wouldn't be good to myself. And then I said, okay, I want, I don't want that. I want more. I want better. So he said, okay, I'm going to write a list for you of the things that, based on the things you said you have, which weren't that much, I'm going to write the opposite, everything that you deserve. And I started reading that list. The first time I read the list, I started laughing. I said, oh my God, I'll never get this. But then I started reading it. By 30 days, I thought, all right, I don't want it. I'm not ready, but I deserve it. And when I started to say that I deserved it, everything changed. You get there. If you're listening to this, you will get there.
Beautiful. This episode brought to you by done, done and done. But there's nothing else to add. You said it perfectly. I can only just simply say, fam, let that sink and resonate with you. If you're finding yourself at that point in time in your life, listen to what Dea said. Go back and listen to it 2 or 3 different times. And just to basically kind of, as you soak that in, let that ruminate. I'm just going to touch on some of the highlights of what she was saying throughout the whole entire process again to re-edify it as a team, because I'm obviously here to support any of our amazing guests. And Dea is a phenomenal coach, so I highly recommend. If you're looking at your growth journey, I love you. I do. I really, really do. I think everyone in this community knows that. I've never been shy about loving you and all the other amazing contributors and Lulu and everyone else, Cindy and so on and so forth, who's coming back again for another time as well. So we're going to be recording soon. Stay tuned for that, fam. You guys all love Coach Cindy as well. Is the fact that as we're going through the unknown, it really does make sense, as Dea said, to literally have someone guide you because you're in uncharted territories. And it's just like if we were going to go on a trip somewhere, we would need to obviously have someone charter the boat who knows how to actually get to the Fiji Islands. You can't just hop in there tomorrow and Dea and I rent the boat and we're just going to go wing it. We literally have to have someone who's going to be the person that's going to be driving the boat. You have to have someone help you discover the unknown inside of you to bring it to the known so that you can start to look at it together. Part of the other process that she's also saying is to walk in grace, is to literally love yourself through this process and to understand that there's going to be things that you don't know about you. So just accept that. Like she was talking about in her journey, where she didn't know who she would be in 30 days if she didn't make the change, and who she would be if she did. I mean, that's a humbling spot where we all have to get to this position where we're ready to just kind of look behind the mask and be honest of who we are and where we are, not where we just want to idealistically be. We've been talking about this throughout the entire episode, and Day has been beautifully articulating it. I'm just summarizing for all of us. So at the same time, for us to really just accept it and hone in on that and just be like, okay, this is where I'm at. It's not where I wanted to be. It's not the ideal. I need to let go of that for a second also because it's holding me back. Like we've been saying, that we're sometimes afraid and we hide from our pain because it's painful. But then it's also painful to hide from our pain. So step into your pain, as she's saying, and take life and breathe life into your purpose, because that's where the next Genesis step becomes. And all the way back to Coach Dea's amazing statements. I'll introduce you one day, Dea. You'll like her a lot. You'll like her. She's an amazing soul. Is the fact that literally what stops you can also be the steps that you end up needing to take. Because if it stops you, then you have a step to be able to take. And it stops you and it turns into a step. And it's a beautiful concept for you to visually, for anyone who's listening to this only on Spotify, and thank you for all those listeners, then you can visually think about that a stop becomes a step. And that's right there from Dea. It's a beautiful, beautiful tool to be able to keep in your arsenal on how to do the inner self work until you do get a coach. And I will have all of her links down below so you can go find her. I highly recommend. And I think also I'm going to wrap it up with a beautiful portion of a compliment to the amazing Dea that she is as a real soul in real life. This isn't just for fun. She is a real woman. She is an incredible leader. And she is an amazing, if I may, an amazing mother of 5 beautiful children. So in her healing journey, to our point for the whole entire episode of today, her working on her and clearing out that pain, she doesn't pass it on to her beautiful babies. She healed her pain and it doesn't get passed on to them. She became stronger. She got the courage. She built that inner fire and she was able to show that, emulate that, role model that, demonstrate that, live that, embody that. And she modeled that for her 5 beautiful children, which I'm sure if we get them on the show, they'll all say, hurrah to this amazing woman. So anyhow, I'm going to pass it back off to you. But
Work in progress. Work in progress.
yeah,
That is very sweet, and I'm laughing because I know my kids. They if you just hear the way that I actually ran across a photo of my 16-year-old son, who's my youngest, in kindergarten, wrote this card: "Happy birthday, mom! You're the best mom in the world." And then I showed it to him. I said, "This is what you used to think then." That is a work in progress too, right?
yeah,
One thing that I've always thought, there's something that I want to tell everyone here about pain. Everybody has pain and trauma, right? Everybody has pain and trauma. When I started my healing journey and I got to the other side where I was better, I realized that no one would relate to my triumph but to my journey. It was about the story of the journey, the steps that I took, the things I had to let go of, and that of which in pain I still had the courage. That inspired people, right? It's so much more inspiring when you meet someone that you say, oh, wow, if they did it, I can do it. So it became about that. So then, as a mother, how did that impact me? I wanted to live the life I wanted my kids to live. I wanted them to know that everybody has trauma. Nobody's perfect. I've had times in my life when I didn't feel enough or didn't feel worthy, right? Everybody goes through something and everyone is going through something. Believe you me, that's the reason why I think there's so much hope in sharing about pain, because pain leads to purpose, whether you see it or not. You may not even see it yet, not have the tools, But one, everybody does. We may be looking at over there thinking they're perfect or they have it all together, but once, whatever is today once wasn't. Whatever is now once was not. Trust me, everyone is dealing with something that you know nothing about. And with that, in that we can find strength, right? We can find strength in that. I just think that if I was to say something to leave you with about pain, I think pain, it's going to sound weird after all the things we said about it, but pain is powerful. And the thing about it is it's powerful in both directions. It's powerful in a negative way, it's powerful in a positive way, right? It can be, it's powerful. It may not be, it's painful, but it's powerful, right? And
That's
it's
right.
powerful in a positive way if you can take what is hurting. Because you said it, it hurts to be in pain, but it also hurts to hide the pain, which causes pain. This cycle. So you get to decide, how your pain will impact you. Just think it as a thought. If you could change the narrative and create a new story about your pain, what would that be? And the way you do is by focusing, what would you like to have? Who would you like to become? Write down the things that you're passionate about. Write everything that lights you up, everything that you're grateful for, and focus on it. It's not about lying about how you're feeling. You may be feeling, I always say, when you change the narrative, they ask me, how do you change the narrative? Do you say, hey, I'm feeling great when you don't feel great? No, no, no. Don't tell someone you're feeling great if you're not, but you can say, look at this language. I don't feel so great today, but I know it's going to pass and tomorrow it's going to be amazing. Now you've already declared that tomorrow is amazing. And when you wake up tomorrow, it'll be amazing. You see, it'll be different in some way because you said it would be. And when you do this enough times, the brain is going to try to match that thought. Say it even if you don't believe it. Say the affirmations. I always say, start with something small like, I deserve all good things. I may not have them right now. It's okay, but I deserve it. And when you start to believe that, when you start to say it enough times, your brain, who doesn't know hear, it only hears your voice and matches the thoughts. Remember, neuroscience, thoughts, behavior, habits. That is molding everything that's around your reality. Okay, say it even when you don't believe it. Think about what faith is for those of you who live in faith. Faith is believing without seeing. Believe it without seeing. Go with it.
Love it.
It's
Love it.
attainable.
Christianity to Buddhism to Stoicism and Socrates, thoughts become things eventually with enough time. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, we can keep on talking for days. I would never, ever, ever get tired of it. But at the same time, we try and keep these down to an hour. So let us know down below how you love the episode, fam. Go find and follow Coach Dea. She's incredible. She's always doing a talk. She's always doing something inspirational. Her social media feeds are incredible. Still waiting for her podcast to return. Maybe one day. Maybe one day. But if you
Maybe
haven't,
one day.
maybe,
Maybe you know what the curious thing is? My podcast wasn't Coach Dea. I wasn't Coach Dea yet. That's why. Isn't that funny? And I just noticed my name over here says Dea Rocha Viola, and I don't know if I didn't write Coach Dea in there in the entry, but that's fine. It's still me. It's still me.
there you go.
And you said it so many times. And thank you. Thank you. Before you close, let me say thank you for, you're incredible. You are an incredible host. I know that a lot of people can speak, a lot of people can, you know, moderate, but very few create the space for their guests the way you do. There is a beauty about your openness, how you welcome, it's just the way that you guide, you lead us guests into the best of ourselves, right? In the way that you present the questions. That's a true host. And I appreciate that about you. And thank you so much again for having me. It's such an honor.
Thank you, Coach Dea. Thank you very much. And fam, follow her. Links down below. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. Love you all. Mwah. Cheers, fam.
Bye.
Preach at all times, but if necessary, use words.
I love that.
Preach at all times, and if necessary, use words.
Thank you. What's on my heart is what's in my heart, which is just
Emotional sense and in a professional sense.
I would say the first thing is professional. I'll talk to that. I think one of the